Before I take a shot at a target, I like to go through 4 principles in my mind. These 4 principles are called the Marksmanship Principles and are taught by the military to soldiers. What these 4 principles allow is the pellet or the projectile to exit the muzzle of the rifle and impact correctly on the target. I'm now going to use this rifle, which is loaded but not made ready, as an aid, and I'm going to try and show you these 4 marksmanship principles in layman's terms. The first marksmanship principle then is the position and hold of the weapon must be firm enough to support it. Now if you're shooting from a sandbag or a bench rest, there are items what are going to be firm enough to support the weapon. But if you're using your own body, there's tips and techniques I can give you to assist you in producing a firmer, stable shooting platform. Now one of the things I see people doing a lot when they're shooting is this, holding their left arm really forward of the rifle. Now that's fine if you can adapt to that technique, but I myself struggle with that when I'm looking for a scope on a high magnification. And the reason I struggle is because there's nothing supporting this arm whatsoever, and so by making this action bigger so you can see, this is actually what's happening, and my arm is waving around due to nothing supporting. The way I get over this is to make like a support, and all I do, I bring my elbow back and support the rifle halfway down the stock. What you can see now is my elbow is tucked into my side and it's produced a pivot and a secure platform for me to shoot from and rest the rifle off. It's basically now as if I'm resting the rifle off a bench or off a sandbag. Another thing I'll do is I'll put my weight backwards. Now the reason I put my weight backwards, I lean backwards, is if I lean forward, and a lot of people will take a forward step, and because I've got my arm halfway down the stock of the rifle, it tends to lower the rifle, and then you're having to compensate by trying lifting it up. If you actually bring that weight backwards onto your back foot, you can then see that your elbow stays nice and tucked into your side, and it keeps a nice even balance for you. Right, the first shot then is going to be from the standing unsupported position, using the technique I've just explained at a bottle top at 27 yards. As you can see, the technique works. The second marksmanship principle is the weapon must point naturally at the target, and for this demonstration of the principle I'm going to be showing you from this prone unsupported position. Now if you note at the moment the rifle is supported on the sandbag, but it's pointing in a 45-degree angle from where the actual target is, which is 27 yards to my front. If I was now to line myself up with this rifle in the position it's in, and then pick it up into the unsupported prone, and then try and move it into position to hit that target, I'm actually shooting from a real uncomfortable position, and I can feel the strain on the right hand side of my rib cage. Straight away, because I'm in an unnatural and uncomfortable position, my accuracy will actually change, and I won't be as accurate as I could be. Now a better way to do this, and it doesn't matter from what shooting position you're shooting from, is always line the rifle up in the direction of the target before you even pick up and look through the scope. So for this case then, I'm going to move the rifle, first of all, pointing down the range, and now I'm moving my body to the rifle, not the rifle to my body. Now I know that my body is in the correct position and it's looking along the same path as the rifle barrel. So now when I pick up the rifle and shoulder it like so, I can see that the rifle's pointing basically right over the target. And a good test to do is to actually lift your eye and then look back through, and if your crosshairs are still around or on the target, you know you're in the correct position and you shouldn't feel any strain, you should be completely relaxed when shooting. The third marksmanship principle is sight alignment must be correct, and for this demonstration I'm going to be using this sandbag and the prone supported position to shoot from. Now, because I've got a scope on my rifle, the majority of hunters use scopes, we're going to talk only about a scope. So the first thing we need to do is make sure our eye relief is correct with the scope, and this is done when we set it up. And what we're looking at here is when our cheek is on the cheek piece of the rifle stock, we should have around about 2 to 2.5 inches gap between the end of the scope and where our eye meets. What that allows us then is to have a full sight picture and crosshair. If your eye's too close and too near the scope, what you'll get is only a small circle and only a portion of the full sight picture. And it's the same if your eye's too far back, as in right back here, and off the cheek piece. This is a view you'd get through your scope if your eye relief was incorrect and your eye was either too close or too far away from the end of the scope's eyepiece. What I'm going to do now is zoom in and look at a ball at the bottom of my garden and try and demonstrate to you what it'd look like to have the correct eye relief in your scope. What you can now see is the scope's picture is full and the crosshairs are in the centre and in focus. This is what you need to be trying to achieve with your own setup. So first thing to do is set it up correctly. Secondly is to make sure that you look through the scope exactly in the middle, because if you don't, and you say you look at a pellet hole at 27 to 30 yards and then move your eye left and right, it will look like the crosshair is moving. Obviously it's not, it's just the optical illusion you get from moving your eye off centre of the scope. This is the view you'll get if you don't look through the scope right in the centre and you move your eye left and right. As you can see, it appears like the crosshairs are moving. This is the optical illusion I was talking about. Thirdly, we need to make sure we've got the parallax adjustment set correctly on the scope. So for this example, I'm shooting at 27 yards in this indoor range. So the side here of my hawk sidewinder is the parallax adjustment, and I set that to around about 27 yards. And to do that, you turn your scope up to the maximum magnification it can be. You then look through your scope, having the correct eye alignment, and then move the parallax adjustment on the scope until the target you're looking at is pin sharp. Once it's pin sharp and in real good focus, then you know it's set and you've got no parallax or the scope is out of focus. I've wound up the magnification now on the scope, and as you can see, the picture's out of focus. This is because we need to adjust the parallax adjustment on the scope. I'm now going to do that now slowly, and you should see the picture come into sharpness like so. This is the picture what you need to be achieving before you take a shot. So basically then, if my eye's too close, I can't see a full sight picture. So I move back into the correct shoot position. I'm then now turning up my magnification and twisting the parallax on the scope so it's pin sharp. I can then move back to the normal magnification I use, which is times 10 anyway. And I see now the target is really sharp and clear at 27 yards, and I've got a full sight picture. The fourth and last marksmanship principle is the shot must be released and followed through correctly. Now, I'm going to demonstrate this again from the prone supported using the sandbag. So let's go through this slowly. This marksmanship principle is just basically a follow through, and ensuring we get correct follow through for the projectile to go along its path to hit the target. So, now I know I'm pointing naturally at the target and I've got the right eye alignment and the parallax is set correctly. I look at the target through the scope and I see I'm roughly over the target and the point of aim what I need to hit. Once I'm happy, I'm trying to raise my actual diaphragm here, and this is to allow me to breathe correctly. If I'm down low, as I'm moving up and down, my whole body and the rifle has a tendency to move. But if you're up as far as you can and in a position where you can actually breathe, it'll stop then and the rifle moving. Now, I've got the crosshair just over the target and I take up the first stage of the trigger. So I'm squeezing very slowly until I feel the first stage of the trigger. At this point, I've still got my eye looking down the scope, and now I stop breathing. Once I stop breathing, I slightly adjust the crosshair to the point of aim I need to be, looking still down the scope. Once I've got it exactly on the point I need, I then slowly, with my eye still looking down the scope, squeeze and release the second stage of the trigger. I keep pulling the trigger all the way in, the shot is released until the trigger won't go in any further, and then I hold it there. At this point my eye is still looking down the scope in this position and my trigger finger is pulled in. By now you would have heard the pellet hit the target and impact. Once you've heard that impact, what I do then is slowly release the trigger forward and then lift my eye from the scope. This allows the pellet to travel along the barrel from the breech of the rifle, along its flight path and hit the target without us moving. If we was to do this, take up the first stage, pull the trigger and look up, your barrel moves slightly and it might move just before the actual pellet has left the muzzle of the rifle, which is obviously going to not give you the accurate shot what you require. So the aim is to keep as still as possible without moving your eye, without jerking the rifle until you hear the impact on the pellet, and this is on the target, sorry, and this is called follow through. When I'm out lamping at night in the fields, one of the preferred positions that I shoot from is the kneeling position. This is because it's a lot more stable than the standing unsupported, and I get a better, precise aim shot. I'm now going to show you my technique, how I get into the kneeling position. There is different ways of doing the kneeling position, but this is just the way I do it and I find it to work for me. As in the standing position, I like to keep my weight back and I like to keep the muscly part or this fleshy part of my arm against the fleshy part of my leg. I have seen people hold a rifle like this and shoot from this position, which is fine if that technique works for you. However, as in within this standing position, there's nothing stopping your arm moving up and down and waving around. The way I get over this is I put my weight back and I lean backwards and make sure that the fleshy part of my arm here is against the fleshy part of my leg. What I find out then is it's like a tabletop and it's a real steady platform to shoot from. It allows me to take a real precise aim shot. The next shot is going to be from the kneeling position. I'm going to be shooting a blue bottle top this time at 27 yards. Yet again, first shot, using the technique, resting the arm, the fleshy part of the arm and the fleshy part of the leg. Whenever possible, I like to take a shot from a stable platform. This provides me with a lot more accurate shot. These platforms could be a tree, a window of your vehicle if you're shooting through the window on your permission, or even a shooting bag what you carry around on your permission with you. The last shot that the hunter uses mostly is a standing supported, and for that I'm going to rest on the side of the range. Imagine it's a tree. So I'll cock the rifle first, and this is a silver bottle top. And the way I usually do this, I usually grip whatever I'm going to rest on, as in if it was a tree, the bark of the tree, and I make sure that the rifle is actually rested on the palm of my hand, not touching the wood whatsoever. As you can see, yet again, another perfect hit. And all these targets are smaller than the kill zone of a UK legal vermin species, i.e. rabbit or squirrel. So you can see they've all been humane kills.